بناوی خوای گەورەی میهرەبان. Good evening and welcome to our webinar series on academic writing and publishing. Today's webinar is entitled How to Make a Good Research Question. As many of you may know, when we conduct research, we usually have to have a research question in mind that we think warrants investigation. We feel that based on our understanding of the literature, the question in our mind is important, but has not been studied at all. Or we may think the question needs to be studied from a different perspective, using a different methodology, or in a different context. Over the past few years, I have been contacted by many colleagues asking me to check if the question they are trying to study is good enough to end up in a good journal or not. In other times, I have been asked to suggest a research question or topic. So I think that finding a good research question or topic is the first step in the research process. So the question is how to find a good research question that is worthy of investigation and spending several months or probably years of your valuable time. To answer this question, I am joined by my virtual friend, Kohei Suzuki. Dr. Kohei is an assistant professor at the Institute of Public Administration, Leiden University. He previously worked as a postdoctoral research fellow, Department of Political Science, University of Gothenburg in Sweden. Dr. Suzuki received his doctoral degree in public policy from Indiana University in 2016. Over the past few years, based on my close follow-up of his work, Kohei has published widely in or worked as a reviewer for top-notch journals such as Public Administration Review, Public Management Review, and a few more. As far as I know, he is currently a guest co-editor for a special issue in the Asian Pacific Journal of Public Administration. So I couldn't think of finding a better person than Kohei to talk about finding or making a research question. So Dr. Suzuki, welcome and yokoso.
Yeah.
If you are ready,
Thank you very much.
Take it away.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ahmad. So I'm very honored to talk about my modest publication experience and my publication journey. So my name is Kohei Suzuki. As Ahmad introduced, I'm an assistant professor at Leiden University, the Netherlands. So I'm originally from...
Probably you can start sharing your screen, your PPTs.
Oh, yeah. I will share my...
Thank you.
How can I share screen? Share? Can you guys see my...
Yep.
Yeah, actually, yeah, I'm very happy to have some connection with, the Kurdish people and Iraq. Actually, my haircut, this is done by a Kurdish person.
Oh, really?
No, yeah, actually, finally 2 weeks ago, I could go to my haircut because, hair salon was, shut down during this lockdown period in the Netherlands. So finally, the last 2 weeks, either 2 weeks ago, I could go to, haircut, the new place. Then I talked to the person, then I found out he's a Kurdish. And then I talked about this seminar. Then I found out that his brother went to the university, your university, roughly.
Oh, really?
So it's it's a small coincidence.
Yeah, it is actually.
Right. So anyway, we want to start my presentation. So I will start with, yes. So my presentation is about how to make good research questions. So I kind of mix textbook type explanation with my own experience. So, that's why my presentation is both subjective and objective. Some parts are from textbook and my lecture, and some parts are from my own experience. So today's talk, this is the topic of today's talk. So self-introduction first. And I want to explain some types of research. Importance. It is important to know types of research that you are doing. And next, I want to talk about what makes a good research question. So I want to talk about attributes of a good research question. Then next, this is from my personal experience. So I want to talk about how to find a good research question from my own experience. And I will go to the Q&A sessions.
Yeah, probably
So
you can move to the next slide as you talk.
Oh, yeah. Can you see my next slide?
Not,
Self-introduction?
no.
No? Uh, I see maybe this.
Yeah, yep.
Can you see I'm
Self-introduction, yep.
switching to the self-introduction. So my name is Kohei Suzuki. So I actually I was born in Japan, then I got a basic education in Japan. Then I went to the US for my master degree and PhD degree. I also lived in Sweden as a postdoc. Then I'm in the Netherlands as an assistant professor. So I kind of lived in 4 different countries. Actually, this, real world, real experience of living in different countries, makes some of my research questions. I'm mainly working on a comparative research. So experience of living in different countries, makes really helps me to, build a good research questions. So I'm at already kindly introduced my background, so I don't have to explain that. But before I went to my PhD degree, I was working for the 6 years as a practitioner. I was mainly working as a policy consultant for local government and central government in Japan. So I worked for almost like 6 years. So I think that this also practitioner experience really helped me to have a good research questions. Then, can you see I move to the next slide, next, Ahmad? Anyone?
No,
I mean,
no,
no?
no. Probably you can click on the next
Maybe
one.
this
Yes,
one?
yep.
Yes, so I mainly study comparative public administration and management, especially focus on the bureaucratic structures and managerial characteristics, gender, and organizational behavior. So I mainly study how big macro factors such as administrative structures, types of bureaucracies, types of government, the gender representation, and how those macro factors affect these dependent variables such as corruption, effectiveness of public policy, effectiveness of government, and broader social and policy outcomes. I also consider how these macro factors interact with the micro factors such as educational background of managers or expertise of individual civil servants or career background. Now, how these two factors affect this kind of outcomes. So I mainly do this kind of research in the cross-national setting and also subnational studies of a Japanese country. So my academic journey, so I mainly, I got, I studied, I started a PhD program in 2010, then I completed the PhD program in 2016. So in the US, it's very normal to, for us to, spend 5 or 6 years to get a PhD. Nowadays, things are better and shorter, but in my days, actually, in my program, actually 6 or 7 years was a pretty average. Then my first publication experience is March 2014. This is my first peer-reviewed publication submission. However, actually it took almost 2 years until I got the first, peer-reviewed publications. Some journals actually did not, quickly review our, our manuscript, or some journals could not find good reviewers. Also, we had to revise our manuscript a lot, so it took almost like 2 years. But actually, things are getting better after that. So after 4 years, from 2016 and 2020, like now, I could publish 13 peer-reviewed articles in the 4 years. So those are including very top journals such as public administration and governance and public management. I also have 2 book chapters and 2 manuscripts on R&R. So I think I consider myself generally as relatively productive in terms of publication. So I'd like to share my experience with you behind that. Then next questions. Sorry, this one. Okay, research question is very important. However, actually, people, not only students, also researchers, seldom spend as much time as necessary to generate and craft the research questions. So I want to ask one question. So why writing a research question, writing a good research question is important for publication? So I'm asking questions.
Because you spend the rest of the paper to answer this question.
Yes, yes.
It is the first step in starting your paper.
Yeah, so if you set the wrong starting point, you will lose your efforts, right? After that. What else?
Actually, I have muted all the attendees so they cannot
So okay.
answer.
I see. So if anyone wants to say something, maybe you can chat. Yeah, you can put the chat. You can put your message on the chat box, or maybe interrupt me. So please feel free to interrupt me. Yeah, if you have a questions, you don't have to wait actually until the end of your session. So in my view, poor questions actually won't interest editors, reviewers, and readers. So if you cannot satisfy editors, you cannot pass a desk review. So your paper will not even be reviewed by reviewers. Then if you ask boring questions or less important questions, reviewers may wonder why this person is, spending a lot of numerous time for such unimportant questions. So you have to convince the importance of your research question to the reviewers and editors. Also, if you ask a very poor research questions, you may not get good results or useful results for the real world or even for the other academic papers. So that's why asking the right questions and asking a meaningful question is basically very important starting point. I think we have some people in the chat. Yes, to solve a problem. Yeah, to have right result. Yeah, I think this is right. And question is like a keyword when someone read it. Yes. So usually, yeah, I think maybe as speakers also, say the importance of introductions. So I think the same thing can be said of the importance of research questions. So I think the research question is more important. Otherwise, people are not interested in your papers, right? Move on to next. So actually, yeah, many people have a difficulty in finding and developing good research questions. Not only PhD students, but also established researchers, also early career researchers. I often heard that the people, academics, have a difficulty in finding a good research question. Some people even ask me, so can you give me a good research question that I can pursue? But I always say, oh, but this is not my job. This is your job, that you have to find your own research questions by yourself. from, well, to show you a slide well. So to show you. So especially, early career researchers, who mostly published with their PhD advisors or colleagues, some of them also have a difficulty in finding good research question because some people always, got used to the, getting a research question from others, not generating a research questions by themselves. So that's why I think it is very important to be independent and to come up with a good research question by yourself. And next, I want to go to the little bit, textbook types of explanation. So in order to come up with a good research questions, it is very important to know what type of research you are doing. So maybe this kind of typology may be too obvious or too like commonsensical to some of you, especially for the experienced researchers. So so basically types of research, we have a normative type of research and also positive type of research. And within the positive type of research, there are several types of research, theoretical and empirical. And within the empirical type of research, there are descriptive, predictive, and explanatory type of research. So basic difference is the normative and positive type of research. So actually this kind of typology may be too commonsensical to most of you, but normative type of research, they usually ask very normative question, how things should be. On the other hand, positive type of research ask a question such as what is, what used to be, and what will be. And types of explanations in the normative research tend to be prescriptive. On the other hand, positive research, the explanation tend to be descriptive or predictive and explanatory research. For example, in the normative research, they usually, deal with a concept such as like good, what is appropriate for society, what is fair, and what is desirable. For example, like some political system are better than another. So representative democracy is better than autocracy or undemocratic and non-democracies. Or some sanctions are better than others, like economic sanctions are better than military intervention. Or other questions, what is optimal level of taxation? So these are kind of normative arguments which you cannot find empirical answers. On the other hand, positive research mainly examine the relationship between abstract concept and concept, such as like what level of taxation minimize social inequality. What's going to happen if a country has more women in the parliament? What kind of policy outcome does country have? Those kind of question that positive research often ask. Then within the positive type of research, there are several differences. I'm not going into the details of this, but I will just briefly explain each type of research. So theoretical positive research mainly deals with some kind of conceptual argument, concept. For example, famous Olsen's articles, his article mainly talks about importance of the Bavarian bureaucracy in examining the organizational performance. And another Fukuyama's article, he tried to conceptualize what good governance is, from an empirical point of view. On the other hand, descriptive research mainly, this mainly try to, describe, what happens, how it happened, and what kind of causal mechanism appears in one single case or two or three more separate cases. Then predictive research, we don't often see this type of research in main social science, but the predictive research mainly deals with empirical future phenomena. So it predicts future, like election, what's going to happen in the next election or something like that. And explanatory research, this is a typical research we are familiar with. So this research is based on the empirical facts and the evidence. So this research mainly deals with the cause of events. So what's going to happen when, as I said, when the country has more right-wing, parliament member or more female council members in the Congress, something like that. So this is explanatory research. So I think that it is very important to know what types of research you are doing. Then this is related to types of contribution. So in the most social science, the purpose of writing a paper or social science paper is to have a general idea of phenomena. So to generalize result or to contribute to the theory. Actually, there's some journals like area study journal, like journals that only focus on a particular area, like Asia or Middle East. They are not so have a, they may not have strong interest in general theory or generalization, but actually other than that, I think the most social science theory journals are very interested in the theory development and theory testing. So it is very important to understand what theory is. So theory is a set of interrelated concepts and assumptions of a social phenomenon. So usually it explains what happens if A happens or if X happens. For example, theory from my field, public administration, representative bureaucracy theory. So this representative bureaucracy theory usually focus on the amount of minority, public servants in, is this the famous Zoom? Right, I think it's okay. So I think the representative bureaucracy theory mainly talks about the relationship between the minority percentage of a minority civil servants and policy outcome. So this theory usually explains what's going to happen if certain percentage of certain minority people in the bureaucracy reaches this percent or this percent. What's going to happen to policy outcome? And the quality of government theory. So what's going to happen if government increase more impartiality or meritocracy in the bureaucracies? And gender differences in the risk aversions is also another theory. So this theory says female bureaucrats, female managers are more risk averse than the male managers. So these are kind of examples of a general theory. So there are three types of contributions to the theory. So one is a theory generalization, and the other is second is theory testing and theory application. So it is very important to know which contribution your paper can make. Do you contribute to the generalization of a new theory? So theory generalizations mainly about developing a new theories based on the existing theory. And theory testing is, apply the existing theory and then test if the theory, can be applicable to certain context, maybe Iraq or Japan. For example, if general theory of, gender representation says more women in a parliament means more women-friendly policy or more, risk aversion outcomes. I can test such theory in a particular context, such as Japan or other Middle Eastern countries or Netherlands or other contexts. So this is a kind of example of a theory testing type research. And theory application is something similar, but we mainly apply the theory, then to explain some general one specific phenomenal case. I think I can skip this one. So I think this is very important to know what type of theory contributions to make. Then in your paper, it is also important to be clear about what type of contribution you want to make, theory testing or theory contribution. I think, in my opinion, this kind of statement should come in the introduction to attract the readers. Then your readers or editors understand the purpose of your paper. And what makes a good positive research question? So this is actually from this excellent textbook, Barask. So maybe I think if you find this book at the library or bookstore, I highly recommend this book. So this book is very easy to read and it is also easy to understand actually. And also this is in my assigned textbook for my research design and research method course. So what makes a good research, positive research questions? Positives, so usually it should be empirical research question. The question should be non-normative and answerable. So you can actually give us some answers to your questions. So you cannot ask a question that you cannot give an answer. And your questions should generate some implications for understanding real world problem. So you have to, go beyond so what. So you have to give an answer or so what. So if, editors or readers may think, so what, after they see your question, that is not a good research question. So you should ask yourself, so what values, your question may have if you find some answers. And good research questions always address a debate or puzzle in the literature. So this is very important. So as a reviewer, I often see the papers who do not cite previous argument in the previous studies at all. So those kind of papers, you know, considered his research question or his study as if very new or novel. But I think this is wrong. So you have to, introduce previous research argument first. Then after that, you have to show how your research questions enhance or increase the understanding of, general phenomena based on the previous discussions. Also, the research questions should not be too broad, but not should be too narrow. For example, like scholars tend to ask very big research questions. For example, how democracy can create a world peace, or some big questions from my field. How can public managers motivate people to work energetically and intelligently toward achieving public purposes? Or how can public managers measure the achievement of their agencies in ways that help to increase those achievements? So can anyone take a guess what's wrong with these big questions? Anyone? What's wrong with these big questions?
I think they're a little bit too broad.
Yeah, a little bit. So what is wrong if it's broad?
You cannot answer it in a paper. You
Yeah.
cannot solve all the problems you have in a country just by conducting a research paper. Your research question has to be really specific.
Yes.
Not too broad.
Yeah, usually the word limit, the one manuscript should have like typically 8,000 words, sometimes including references. So I think these big questions are too big for to answer the question to answer in a single paper. So I think there are also a couple of others in the chat box. Oh, someone, yeah, send a link to download the book. That is good. Yeah, they are broad. Yeah, too broad. Sources of how to look for the best list. Yeah, I think I will list. I will send you yeah, references later. So, so I think that your question should be narrow enough. Then how to find and develop a good research question. So far, I mainly explain the textbook type, I mainly use the textbook type explanations, such as the explanation that I use in my research design or research method course. But from now, I mainly explain my, my talk mainly talk about my own experience. So can you actually find and write a good research questions? So actually, it is very easy to say the importance of research questions, and it is very easy to say, well, you have to write a very good question. But actually, it is very difficult. It is very time consuming to find and to develop a good research questions. So, but I want to share my modest experience of the research activities. So my strategy is this. So this is ocean picture from the Okinawa island in Japan. So has anyone been to, fortunately been to Okinawa island?
No, because you cannot get Japanese visa.
Oh, oh,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Yeah, yeah. Actually, the Kurdish person I talked to in the haircut place, he's also very interested in going to Japan. So I hope that, yeah, Japanese will relax some more, yeah, the visa requirement, and I hope that some of you, we can, yeah, yeah, one day, yeah, I hope one day some of you can go to the Japan. Especially, I highly recommend Okinawa Island. It's the southernmost part of Japan, which has a very beautiful ocean. So my strategy is finding a blue oceans. So has anyone heard about the blue ocean strategies in a business management textbook?
Not me.
Not you or anyone in a business management?
We
Not
have a couple.
really.
We have a couple of people majoring in business management, but I don't know.
Yeah,
I
actually,
have heard about so much.
I'm not sure if this is, still powerful, but I read this book at the 2000, probably 2007 or 6. So, and since then, I think it became the worldwide bestseller. So the recent version is this 2014. This book is written by, I think that they are working for the business school in Switzerland, Chan Kim and the Swiss, the colleagues, Blue Ocean Strategies. So this strategy contrasts blue oceans and red oceans. So maybe you see the differences between blue ocean and red oceans. So what are major differences? So how is a blue ocean different from
In the blue
blue?
ocean, you have just one boat, but in the other one, you have many. It's a little bit too crowded.
Yeah, that means I think we also have less boat. Yeah, crowded. Yes. So blue ocean strategy is avoid crowded ocean, then find the blue oceans. So in the red oceans, someone raise a hand. Yes. In I don't know how can I do it?
Maybe if anyone want to have anything, they can just type it in the chat box.
Yeah, I mistake. Okay, no worry. So usually, the blue ocean is less competitors or maybe no competitors. However, red ocean is many competitors. So I recommend to find your own blue oceans in your research. So red ocean usually means in this book, according to this book, red ocean is all the industries exist today, and also they know the marketplace. So they know, industry companies know where the market is, what consumers need. So everyone is very obvious. So in the consequence, there's a cutthroat competition, like bloody competition among participants or companies. So what companies can do is maybe just to cut cost, want to make price cheaper, and maybe values over each price may go, decrease or go down. And red ocean usually means try to find the strategies among this very competitive market. However, blue ocean is a very new market. So this is a many unknown market. Maybe many people do not recognize even the existence of such market. However, if you are fishing, if you are only one person in the blue ocean, then nobody follows you. What's going to happen? Maybe you are such a it's like you are living in a very isolated island for 100 years or like 20 or 30 years. You may feel alone. So you have to find a blue ocean that may attract more customers or more market in the later. Or you can create new demand based on in your blue ocean. That is a blue ocean strategy. So we can relate this strategy to the research, strategies. This is from my example from my field. So in the public administration management and political science research, so research examples of research topics in my view is such as like public service motivation. For example, if I type a keyword like public service motivation in a Google Scholar, I got like 10,440 hits in a Google Scholar. Then if I type voting behaviors, more than that, voting behavior got like 68,000, 68,000 articles that related to voting behavior. Voter turnout also got a lot, and consolidation of democracy. There's a lot of actual articles that maybe directly or indirectly dealing with this concept. So I think you can find the similar topics, red ocean topics in your field. If you are in political science or business management, and also maybe history, there must be a lot of red ocean topics in your field as well. So so what's wrong with studying red ocean topics? So I'm not gonna stop, or I'm not saying, it is useless to study, red ocean topics at this point. At least the research question issue. Yes. Which one? Yeah. I said, yeah, which is better? I think I said blue ocean is better, not red ocean. Avoid red ocean topics. Then I'm gonna explain what's wrong with the red ocean topics. So mostly, if you aim top level journals with red ocean topics, your paper really has to be very competitive and maybe methodologically very advanced or make very significant development to the theory. This is because the topics is red ocean. There are like many studies, many things already discovered in the past. So That's why the amount of contribution you can make in a single paper or red ocean topic is really limited. But I'm not saying that it is impossible to publish red ocean topics. It is still possible, but not at the top level journals. Or the other journals, I think it is red ocean topics is a very promising if you use a theory testing type of research. For example, like if you use a public service motivation theory, you can use this general theory in the specific context, like maybe Kurdish context. Maybe you can say public service motivation is widely studied. Then there is a general, agreement how public service motivation works. However, this public motivation theory is not tested in the context of Kurdish or Iraq or a particular Middle Eastern country. In that case, you can make a theory testing type research. But I think you cannot make a very top level, publication with such a, theory testing type research. Then, so how to find a good research question? So I want to explain my own blue ocean strategies. So first strategy is a combine knowledge from different disciplines and identify an important research gap. So what is obvious or what is known in one discipline may not be the case in other disciplines. So what I know as a public administration scholars may not be may be different from what you know as a business management scholars or what you know as a historian or a sociologist. So actually the academics are living in their own world. So what we know actually depends on the disciplines. Then my strategy is to find what's missing in one discipline. For example, my recent publications at Public Administration Review, our research question is that the level of bureaucratic politicizations affect individual civil servants' pro-innovation attitudes. So here we focus on the very macro level factors such as structures of national bureaucracy and micro factors such as individual civil servants' attitude toward innovation in the public sector. So we examine how such macro factors affect micro factors. So we combine macro and micro factors in research questions. So background of this research question is a gap in political science and public management research. So I have a background in two disciplines. So that's why I figure out what is missing in each discipline. So in the political science studies mostly focus on the macro factors and mostly they do a comparative research. However, they do not study individual bureaucrats or actually they mainly pay attention to the political party, but not civil servants. However, there is a recent interest in the bureaucracy in the political science. However, but the main focus are still macro structure, organizational, very big factors. On the other hand, in the public management, in my field and also Ahmad's field, this field scholars mainly studies micro factors such as individual civil servants or public organizations. However, they are good at very micro. However, they do not usually compare. They usually only study one country, mostly US or UK, or some examples like Korea or China or other countries. So comparative comparison across country is not very popular in public management. However, there is a recent critique in the public management literature. So there is the article which says, or public management scholars should compare countries and should pay attention to more comparative macro structures. So there's an argument. So what we did is to combine the strengths and weakness of each discipline. Because political science is good at macro factors, and public management is good at micro factors. So what we did in research questions, how these macro political factors affect micro public management factors. So we find a gap in each policy and public management discipline and come up with research questions. So this is how we find, blue ocean, what I call a blue ocean in my research. And next example is of how to find a good research in a blue ocean is coming from your own experience or your experience with practitioners or in your daily life. So you can find and develop a good research question from policy practice or real world examples. So this is from my two articles about the government expenditure cuts and the citizens' participations. So I have two published articles. One article got the best article prize in the 2017. So this is actually from my dissertation. So my main research question is, do government spending cuts motivate citizens to volunteer for public service provision? So my main research questions, what people do when government cut public services or services to citizens, what spending for citizens. Do people do more volunteering or do work? Do they participate in the volunteering to provide for collective goods, public services instead of government? This is my main research questions. So this actually experience come from my own, question might come from my own practitioner experiences. So as a practitioner, I visited many local communities in Japan. Then actually most Japanese municipalities experience a population decline, also experience extensive expenditure cuts. So some governments cut a lot of spending on public services, such as community, like bus, transportation service, or hospital services, and as a, road construction and other necessary services. However, you know, I also see that in some municipalities, in some areas, citizens are very active to provide, to do a volunteering, to help government, when they are experiencing expenditure cut. So they provide, they run the public transportation instead of government at a very cheaper cost by doing a volunteering, something like that. So when the government is declining, citizens actually stand up to help the government and to provide services. So I was very interested in this kind of two relationship. Then I tried to find existing studies, existing theories, but I could not find any good existing studies that really fit my research questions. So my impression is actually theory building is very behind the reality. So what I observed is a very actually something very advanced of the theories. So my solution is to find the closest existing theory, which is a crowd-in and crowd-out theory. So this crowd-in and crowd-out theory mainly concerns how government size or expansion of government services or expenditure, not cut or not reduction affect citizens' behavior. So in my paper, I address that this existing theory mainly focus on the expansion, not reduction, not cut in the government services. Then I apply this theory, then integrate into my research questions. So I think the real world experiences, also talking to practitioners is very important because the theory is a result of what scholars studied for many years. So usually that's why theory is always behind the reality, especially in the new phenomena. Then practitioners and local government officials, or maybe frontline bureaucrats, they are the one who know the reality well. So talk to them and find what's going on in the field. Then try to connect what you observe and existing theory. Then you may come up with a new research questions. So that's my technique. Then actually that's not enough. So now you successfully find a good research questions and successfully get your paper accepted. But you should not stop there because if you are the only one in a blue ocean, no one will follow you. No one can help you to develop your market. So you have to develop your research question market by yourself. So you should create and develop new demand of your research questions. So this is how people do. Actually, I'm still doing it, so I'm not sure if I'm successful or not. We will see how things go in maybe 5 years. So my strategy is propose unanswered research questions in your manuscript. So if you write a research question, if you write a paper, there must be related unanswered questions or questions you cannot answer in your single paper. So list those unanswered questions in the end of your paper. Maybe you can say, oh, future research agenda includes this, then you can type these types of research questions that you want to answer. Then maybe if your readers, if someone read a paper in the future, then maybe someone will want to help you to develop your new research project or develop your research questions. So that may help others to develop the research questions you come up with. Also, and then other researchers may follow you. Then you should not be shy to advertise your research output widely. So learn how Ahmad advertise his published work using Twitter. So Ahmad, I think you are very good at advertising your work, right?
I'm not too bad. Yeah.
So learn how Ahmad does in Twitter or others. So I think you don't have to be shy to promote your own research. Then, others will discover your research. So you should not wait until other researchers find you. You should go there, then introduce your research to develop, to introduce your research question or your research market. Then make a group of researchers who are interested in your research questions. So you should also collaborate with others. And also connect, yeah, as I said, connect with like-minded researchers. So if you find other researchers who are interested in what you are doing, just send an email to collaborate. For example, I recently find paper who cites my own work. Then I send an email to the author to show my appreciation. Then say thank you for citing my work. Then he's a kind sort of established, very famous author, famous researcher, but actually he invites me to his new collaboration work. So now we are the co-author, we are collaborators together. So we are writing a paper together. So I think you can do the same. So don't be shy to connect to the people. You find a new collaborator. Yeah, so I think that's it about my presentation. So maybe we should go on to the Q&A.
Yes, thank you so much once again, Dr. Kohei, for your presentation. For me personally, it was really helpful, especially you just added more workload for me because I will have to read the book about blue strategy, blue ocean, red ocean.
Yeah, actually, you don't have to read a
Interest.
book. There must be a lot of web page information about the strategy, so you can easily
Yeah,
get.
but this book, especially you highlighted, it should be really important. So I don't promise you to read the whole book, but I'll promise to read at least a few
Yeah, I
sentences.
highly recommend. Yes.
Yeah, thank you so much. So let us go to the chat box to see if we have got
Yeah,
any
yeah.
questions.
Uh, uh, should I fast or please go? I think the easiest thing, this question is from Yang Jin. I think the easiest thing to do is to find the problem, phenomena you want to study. But the harder thing is to come up with a research problem for academic paper. Yeah,
She is my colleague from Shanghai Jiaotang University, School of
I,
International and Public Affairs. Yeah.
I see. Yeah, I think this, yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, it's very hard to come up with a research problem. So, but I think I personally, not personally, but I think you have to, widely read the previous literatures. So, for example, even if let's say there are like two people, almost like identical people, then these two persons see the same phenomena. Then they come up with a very like origin of a good research question. Then after that, one person widely reads previous studies in that field, then understand what's going on in the academic argument. But the other person does not read previous studies, just stick with what he or she found as a research question. Then I think this person who studies more about previous studies, who is, digest what's going on in a previous study, this person can easily connect what she or he found in the real world or come up with the research good questions and with knowledge of research, previous studies. So I think that investing the time to consume previous studies is very important. Then you will see a new idea or develop a new idea. That's my, yeah, answer. Then I think Ahmad, there's a request for you to share your own experience.
But before that, you have got a question by
Okay.
Heman. Heman.
Heyman, where is the Heyman?
So you said that it took me over 2 years to have your first paper published. Is it
Is
possible
it
to
possible
have?
to have
Yeah.
uh, 3 or maybe for the acceptance, it may be possible, but usually I think
Yeah, but
it's
based on my own experience, I have had about 10 papers accepted or published. None of them took, some paper took even 1 year. I have a
yeah,
paper, under review for over a year. So I don't know if it's possible, especially in social science,
yeah.
because
And also,
sometimes when you submit a paper, you have to wait 3 to 4 weeks until the editor will review your paper to see if it is suitable or not, to see if the quality is good or not. So just 3 to 4 weeks for me, I don't think is, I'm not saying it is impossible,
yeah,
but
so
it's just, it doesn't feel
Yeah, I think it's unrealistic to
Yeah,
expect.
unrealistic,
Yeah,
exactly.
unrealistic. I think generally average maybe 2 months, at least 2 months or three
Yeah.
months, or even a year. So I think it is very important to know that usually journal editors or reviewers do not get paid for this kind of reviewing or editorialship. So if they are very busy, they cannot have enough time to read your paper or to process your paper. So sometimes it takes time, but sometimes, yeah, it takes faster. So that depends on the timing and how lucky you are.
And one more question from Shema. How to make a difference between inductive and deductive approach? I
Now,
don't know. Yeah, yeah.
inductive approach is a kind of bottom-up approach, and deductive approach is a kind of top-down approach. That usually deductive approach is there is already like established theory. So if, for example, like in my field, like meritocratic recruitment bureaucrats, if country has a more meritocratically recruited civil servants, those countries are less corrupt. So this is a kind of theory or general idea about merit Bavarian bureaucracy. So if I use a deductive approach, I can use this theory in particular context, as I mentioned, such as Iraq. So Iraq or Japan, or so I just apply this general theory to some specific context, then to see if theory can be applied to this specific context. So this is a deductive approach. So inductive approach is more like bottom up. So there is no existing framework or existing theory, but they are like maybe fragmented concept which partly touch, partly talks about your research topic, but not perfectly. So you can find some general theory, but they are very separate and they are not perfectly, they do not perfectly fit your research question. So in that case, you may have to combine existing theory, or you may have to create your own like kind of theoretical framework from nothing, from scratch. So this is kind of bottom-up approach. So this is called inductive approach to the theory. Is this clear?
Yep. One more question by Hemen.
Mm-hmm.
In empirical papers, there is often a section called limitations,
Limitation, yes.
where authors highlight the limitations in their research and suggest avenues for future research. Don't you think this section is also a good place to find a good research
Yeah.
question topic?
Yeah, that is a very good question and very good point. Actually, research limitations goes to the future research agenda because
Yep.
research limitation is something you cannot do with your data, right? With what you have. Because, for example, if data does not cover beyond the European countries or does not cover Middle Eastern countries, you cannot say anything about Middle Eastern countries or other countries outside Europe. So then after you mention that, or maybe another limitation, maybe you cannot find some specific questions or some specific variables that you are interested in your survey data, or some specific municipalities are not included in the research, in the data set. In that case, you cannot, deal with those kind of parts. So that goes to also, future research agenda. Then, in the following after the limitation sections, you can say, oh, my future research agenda is to increase the sample size or to investigate how my findings in this paper are applicable to this context, this context or something like that. Yes.
Shema says, could you later send your webinar, dear Dr. Amin? She requests you to share your PPTs, your PowerPoint presentations. Is it possible for me to share this?
Yeah. So you can send my PDF version of, I sent you a PDF version, right?
Okay, yes, you did.
You can send, share the PDF version
Thank you.
to me.
And we have Shuan Hassan. He has got two questions. The first one is, what is the relationship between the research question and research hypothesis? I mean, which one is retrieved or derived from the other?
Yeah, research hypothesis comes from the research questions. For example, if your research question is, let's say, how gender, like male or female, gender of public servants affects their satisfaction, job satisfactions. That is your research question. Then your hypothesis is, coming from your research question. For example, like hypothesis one, female public servants are more likely to be satisfied. This is hypothesis one. Then hypothesis two, female servants in lower level. This is more like subcomponent of hypothesis. So civil servants in a lower, female civil servants in a lower level of bureaucracy are more likely to satisfy. However, then it's hypothesis three, female public servants in upper level of bureaucracy are less likely to be satisfied. So these three hypotheses are kind of component of a big research question. So the umbrella is a research question, then hypothesis.
Yep, and Shuan has got one more question. How many research questions are allowed practically to be articulated for each research paper?
Of course, one research question that is not allowed or like expected. If you ask two research questions, I think that's too much.
Yeah.
Then about the number of hypotheses, I don't know. This might be a controversial. I don't know. What do you think about Ahmad? I think for me, 4 or 5 hypotheses should be enough.
Me too. When I read papers or review papers and the papers have many research hypotheses, I usually get lost. I don't know what exactly the main focus of the paper is.
Right.
So better to focus on the depth of the paper on research questions rather than the breadth. So just because you have many research questions or hypotheses does not mean your paper is good.
Yeah, then I think that if you have like 10 hypotheses, the space and the amount of sentences you can dedicate to each hypothesis is limited, right? You cannot write one page for one hypothesis, maybe just one paragraph for each hypothesis. So there's not much information and there is no basis of each hypothesis. So that's why I recommend fewer hypotheses.
Yeah, and you have one more question from Shaima Karim. After making your review for previous studies, how can you select your research question from many confused ideas? I don't know if I get her meaning, but if you can probably... Can you see the question?
Yeah. So I think if you read more previous studies, you get more confused because there are like many ideas.
I'm not sure if I get it or not, so probably she can explain it if she is still here. And while she is explaining it for us, you can go to it's not a question, try to aggregate smaller hypotheses into bigger ones.
Try to aggregate big hypotheses in the small one, right?
No, try to aggregate smaller hypotheses into bigger ones.
Aggregate.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, aggregate. Probably yes. Do you have any? Probably it is all for today. Thank you.
I think Shayama, she said, I mean, how to select specific idea. Yeah, I think that depends on your research interest and yeah, what is appealing and what is most convincing for you. But I know this is very hard process. So in my experience, it took almost like 1 year to select which framework I should use. So you have to like debate yourself in the brain, or you can talk to your colleagues. So I think I have to say this is very time-consuming process.
Yeah, and one last question. How many research questions should be stated in a paper? I think you already answered this question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One.
Yep. So that's all for today. Thank you so much, Dr. Kohei Suzuki.
Yeah.
I'm
Thank you
very
very much.
grateful for you, and thank you for our audience.